Trauma Therapist Podcast, episode 523. All right, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to raise the awareness of trauma and to support and inspire new trauma therapists just starting out on the trauma-informed journey. I do that with my membership community, Trauma Therapist 2.0, my online courses and workshops, and the Trauma Therapist newsletter. If you're a therapist of any kind and you work with individuals who've been impacted by trauma, I invite you to head on over to my website at thetraumatherapistproject.com. That's thetraumatherapistproject.com. All right, let's get started. All right, Marianne, you ready to do this?
I'm ready.
All right. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. I am very excited to have as my guest today, Marianne Hennigar. Marianne, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
All right. So since childhood, Marianne's been fascinated by how people work. She uses psychoeducation to connect the dots between the psychological and emotional experiences which express themselves in the body. As additional support, Marianne's seeking certification in Somatic Experiencing and Brainspotting, both body-based modalities which support the client harnessing their own internal wisdom through focus to discover healing. It's her goal to support wellness and self-discovery. All right, Marianne, just a little bit about you. Before we get going here, share with our listeners where you're from originally and then where you're
I was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Okay. And where are you right now?
I'm in Long Island.
Long Island. Nice. That's my old stomping ground.
That's wonderful. Well, I have built myself a little business here. It's a small wellness center right in the town of Port Jefferson.
Okay. Port Jeff. Yep. Know it.
Yep.
All right. So let's start. How the heck did you get into this field, this specialization?
Well, so I've been working with people and their pain since childhood. I started off with my mother who had chronic pain. And just had to come up with creative ways to help her get out of pain, and realized as I came into adulthood and I was casting about for a good job that would be a steady income, but let me be my own boss, I decided to go to massage school and became an orthopedic and clinical sports massage therapist. And so from there, and this has been about 26 years. So from there, I worked on clients and developed a body of work that connected the dots between physical pain and emotional experience. And the work is called psychoemotive anatomy, and I have a trademark on it. And it was a system that I developed to help people understand their pain and help themselves. Because the biomarkers of pain, I see them as a language for our experience, as opposed to simply having symptoms. Mm-hmm. So then I realized, well, I might want some psychoeducation on board. So I'm waiting to see if I get into a university here on Long Island for a year's program that will really allow me to dive into my research more. But with that, I'm combining the somatic experiencing and the brain spotting to really give the client a rich platform in which to go on this guided journey to self-discovery.
So just go back a little bit. You said from a very early age, you were helping people with their pain. Say more about that and the work you were, what you were doing.
It was almost intuitive. I self-taught to do pressure point work, acupressure. And then I later studied it to see, where do these dots connect? And my friends in high school say they would hurt themselves in soccer, or someone would have menstrual cramps. There are pressure points on the foot that you can massage and hold that will make those menstrual cramps go right away. So I realized that I had a deep connection with people and could intuitively feel their pain and sense their fired up energy centers or underfiring areas. So I decided, to understand about the body and get some real education and biomechanics and how the body works.
So just as a young kid, you were drawn to people who were in pain or needed help, and similarly, they came to you. They were drawn to you because you were a healer, essentially.
Exactly, a born healer.
Yeah.
So even sinus infections, we can work with that, with sinus pain. Migraines, we can deal with that by doing TMJ work and working inside the mouth. So that's pretty exciting stuff too.
Wow. Okay. So now you mentioned with the kind of technology that you created, you talked about connecting the dots. Let's kind of put a little magnifying glass around that a little bit and dial in. What do you mean specifically about connecting the dots?
So clients, when you work on them as a massage therapist, they report on themselves. And so I've put my hands on thousands of people by now. And so I started noticing patterns between what people were reporting about their living experience and conditions as we would work an area that was painful to the touch or painful even without touch. And so I started recording these,
Okay.
and I realized,
give me an example.
okay, so for some people, if their mid-range low back hurts all across that band, very often people will report that they are worried about themselves in some way, either physically or they're worried about their financial circumstances. And if there is a correlation between their body talking to them and that experience, and we speak of it, very often the pain goes away, even without me touching them. There are other instances in which, say, you have pain on the seventh cervical vertebra, or basically our entire body hangs off that. Our first rib goes underneath our collarbone here, and then, the rest of our frame is hung off that. The seventh cervical vertebra, or C7, is often the site of where our negative voice within is speaking to us very loudly. Originally, that voice comes from perhaps a parent figure, then morphs into our own internal negative voice within. So if we get our feelings hurt, that place may hurt. When people often say, well, it's stress. Well, look a bit further and see what's going on in your life that's really trying to get your attention. If you're able to acknowledge the correct issue, and you're the barometer, the client's the expert. If you are recognizing what is really trying to be expressed there, then the pain will go away. And so it's really amazing. I've seen this even with people's skin. I can do the guided body-based focus with them, and we'll be thinking about maybe some eczema issues or something like that. And there is a correlation between what they're experiencing in their lives and an active area of eczema. If we are able to acknowledge and follow that flow in the focus time, then the eczema will clear up. It's amazing.
Now, what about in terms of people who've been traumatized?
So with trauma, it works very well with trauma. And that's where the added piece, combining the somatic experiencing with the brain spotting, because we are taking the client either from an activation point, and that would be expressed as some feeling in the body, and working with what they want to work with. We can go from an activation spot or from a resource spot. Mm-hmm. Either one will get them where they need to go. The client focuses, we notice body sensations. We come to the session with curiosity. And again, I am just following along the client. Mm-hmm. I'm there to support them and get out of their way. So as they process through, a lot of stuff will come up and they'll have sensations all over the body. But eventually, if we do ask a scaling question, 1 being the most calm, 10 being the most activated, where are you now? Oh, I'm down from a 7 and I'm actually about a 2 now. All right, well, let's just be with that and continue with curiosity. And very often what we're looking for is to get to a feeling of 0, neutral feeling. So in essence, what's happening in these sessions is we're helping the client to change their relationship to their history. So I always say, you cannot change your past, but you can change your relationship to it. And using the body as a guide for that is really an amazing natural harnessing for wellness. I love it.
The technology you said you created, what was the name of that again?
Psychoemotive anatomy.
Psychoemotive anatomy. Now, does that come into play when you're working with someone who's been impacted by trauma?
Yes, and this is what I'll be also researching when I get into the graduate program. But what happens is I will be doing workshops and classes and then writing about this for public consumption. Okay. And so as I help people begin to think of their body as speaking to them through pain or biomechanical dysfunction, that they can say, okay, yeah, I really did get my feelings hurt recently and my neck's been killing me. And so you start thinking about that. And if they can kind of start doing a natural brain spot on that, then they will be able to get through the maze of whatever it is that's got them showing pain, come through it, come to their own understanding of it, and then the pain alleviates. And so psychoemotive anatomy simply lays out what the person may be experiencing. And if it is accurate to their experience, they'll get a yes, internal yes. If it's not accurate, they keep exploring. So I'm still learning from my clients. There are layers and layers of this stuff. Some of it's universal from one client to the next. Some of it's endemic to you. An example, say I was having a huge fight with my husband. Well, I happened to be very angry at him, and I went down the stairs and I stepped funny and broke my ankle. And I'm on crutches. And I really felt like he wasn't supporting me, which ankle is lack of support when it gets hurt. And so years pass, I've mended up, but we go through another situation in which I just don't feel like my husband's supporting me. My ankle will start hurting again in that same spot because of body memory. And so I know that I need to do some resolution around that. It's uncanny how this works. And the sky's the limit.
Right. So how would you differentiate the psychoemotive anatomy and say sensorimotor psychotherapy or somatic experiencing, the body-based treatment modalities?
They're sister modalities, cousins and sisters or brothers, but they are all taking a unique viewpoint of a phenomenon that's occurring anyway. It's just a different explanation. I'm body-based, so I'm going to call it psychoemotive anatomy. Peter Levine was a psychologist. He's going to be, psych-based, but he's noticing that the body is still speaking. And so, we both come across our ways of understanding what the body is trying to do in terms of speaking to us. Although, like I said, I don't see it as symptoms. I see it as a language of pain. And that way.
Are you doing more hands-on stuff?
When necessary. The good thing about bringing SE and brain spotting on board is I don't actually have to put my hands on people anymore. I can do the work either energetically or talking through the body-based focus. And now what I can't do for them is the stretching stuff. I can't do that through speaking. So if I'm going to be a sports massage therapist and help people with their stretching, because they can do passive stretching, which may be more effective than active stretching, I'll do that. And in my space, I do have a massage table, but I'm really more of a focus facilitator with body-based nuances to it, some active work with people. But I definitely do not do the traditional massage anymore. So it's targeted. So even thinking about something like fibromyalgia, that's a body-based experience. The fibromyalgia is expressing something that the individual is experiencing that's chronic. So if we can talk through it, maybe even do a little bit of hands-on touch, just the touch can really help it soothe and kind of settle.
So do people come to you because of your experience utilizing the body? Do people come to you because for all different reasons, or do they come to you because of specialization in trauma? What?
All different reasons. A lot of my clients now are mental health care workers, and they need the support, especially during these times, because it's been very, very stressful for the mental health community to try to help the broader population. Some people, they'll come specifically. I've come because I've got eczema that's flaring up and it's driving me crazy, and I want to work with that. Then somebody else will come and say, I've had this chronic pain in my back since I was a little girl because I was in a bad bike wreck, and I really need some help with it. And we can, within one session, get that person relief that they hadn't had in years through talking. So it's all of the above. And I've really tried to build my toolbox so that I can address people in as broadly a manner as possible. And where I don't have expertise, so I'm not a kidney doctor, right? I'm not an ENT. So I'll refer people when they come to me with something that they clearly need to see another professional. So I'm part of a wagon wheel of healthcare, with the client being in the center, and I'm one of the spokes. And I have a unique skill set that comes together a little bit differently than, maybe the next healthcare provider.
Yeah, well, it definitely sounds like that. I mean, it sounds like you're like a healer. I mean, in a kind of broad sense of the word, not just a therapist, but more of a healer. I mean, how so if I wanted to come to you because well, do you do talk therapy?
Well, so I'm not a psychotherapist,
Okay.
but what I do is when you come into a session, you'll come in and talk to me about what's on your mind for that day, right? So you do that with a regular therapist. But then what we do is we bring on board the body-based focus. First, we check in with how the body feels. Are you sitting on a surface where you feel supported? What do you notice in your body? And I'll make notation either mentally, or I'll make a little note about what they're talking. Their fingers are tingling. Okay, so that tells me they might be in some degree of fight, flight, or freeze if the hands are tingling. And so we'll start working with those feelings, and the client guides the session. So I work very often in conjunction with people's therapists, not in the session itself, but just as another layer of care. So, and I would not recommend myself over a mental health care worker if that's what the client needs. But if they're finding relief and they're getting traction with the movement they want to make, and these modalities, they do often work at lightning speed compared to traditional talk therapy, because in traditional talk therapy, we're using our frontal cortex, and that works very slow for information in and information out. So we need to get to the hindbrain, or the prefrontal, the midbrain, the mammalian brain, which is our reactive survival brain. That is reworking its circuiting at lightning speed, and so it can bring into awareness as it sorts through itself. So it's very, very exciting. I love to see my clients' growth. I love to see somebody who's clearly extraordinarily depressed, 2 weeks ago, and now they only remember an echo of that sensation. And so often other therapists will send their clients to me as a support to the work that they're doing.
Go see Marianne. I don't know what I'm doing. Go see Marianne.
Exactly.
What is it about you, Marianne, that allows you to do this work? I mean, there's something about you that's different, that's unique, because you're, like you said, you're part of a wagon wheel, but you're definitely a unique part of that wagon wheel.
I'm extraordinarily blessed. I don't know, a lot of people don't talk about their connection to the source, but I feel very closely aligned with the work that the source sent me here to do. And I feel like, some people will identify with one religion or spiritual path and another. I'm kind of a mix because I grew up in Greece as a child, so Greek Orthodoxy, Catholicism, some mysticism there. But I feel very, very close to the source. And I feel like that the work that I've come in here to do is just a continuation of the work that Christ came in to do, which is to heal and to love. And so I think that the source speaks through me often and gives me wisdom that I would not ever have thought of on my own. So
how do you market yourself in a sense? Do you don't call yourself a therapist, you call yourself a healer?
I'm a wellness coach. I just
just
finished my certification through Mayo Clinic, and so that'll be another one of my little plaques on the wall. Because I felt that it would give me the most freedom to traverse the physical, the emotional, the psychological, arenas that I operate in. So yeah. So
okay. So let me ask you what I ask my guests on the show, which is to share an early clinical error, mistake, mishap, and what you learned from that.
Okay. Let's see. Well, something that happened early on. I may have overstretched somebody at one point, and I needed to go into it more slowly. And what I learned, they drove home in massage school is never, ever, ever do ballistic stretching. And that wasn't what I was doing. It was just that this person, they just didn't have the degree of flexibility that I thought they would. And so, but I self-corrected quickly, because as I had them in the stretch and I was pushing the leg, I had them activate those large thigh muscles and push me away. And that allowed for broadening of the muscles instead of elongating. And that helped them get the stretch they needed. But, I just pushed them a little too fast at first. And so it was like, but we were able to backtrack.
What's ballistic?
Ballistic stretching is when you do bouncy stretching.
Right.
Never, ever do that. That's very bad for your muscles.
Oh, okay.
And because they think that like if you do the neck forward quickly, it thinks it's had a whiplash.
Right.
You don't want to do any bouncing stretching because it actually ends up hurting your muscles.
Okay.
So,
all right. So in terms of, offering some guidance to kind of new clinicians out there, students out there who are listening to this, you mentioned you're a wellness coach. You're not a therapist. You're not a psychotherapist. And you said you felt that was the best option that would give you a certain amount of freedom. Talk about that a little bit. Because I know people are going to be listening to this and going, okay, should I pursue being a coach? What about being a therapist? I think this is a interesting topic.
Well, I have to say that I feel like that the psychoeducation that I'm developing is invaluable. I've spent already 3 semesters through a university in Arkansas. And that really informed me that I don't want to go into clinical therapy that way, because of just some of the limitations that you may come into with that. And other people, they love that structure. There's a lot of regulation and a lot of things that you have to adhere to. And there's a lot of paperwork that would just take away from my client time. And so there are, especially like I hear in Australia, there are a lot of people who maybe have their education in psychotherapy, but decided to become wellness coaches because it allowed them to open up their practice. Also, wellness coaches don't diagnose. And in order for you to do third-party payer, you have to give some type of diagnosis for the client, which follows them. So I didn't want to be part of that system either. Also, I grew up with a psychotherapist, and I just saw some of what that person went through and just realized I have two entities that I have to answer to, is the client and the source. And I can't let anything get in between. So what I would say is definitely go get education, psychologically, so that you know what other people have done before you. You can take the best from what they've done and leave the rest for what doesn't seem to work. It also gives you discipline for focus. And then, cast about, look at some videos on Brainspotting or on Somatic Experiencing on YouTube. There's some very rich information there that people can really enjoy and kind of find their way. But this path, I had a little bumpy road coming into this path because I didn't know exactly how I was going to pull it all together. And I kept saying in the beginning of the pandemic, I need to get this pulled together, and I just want to get my arms around the world because people are suffering. And so now that I've pulled all these threads together, I feel like I can get my arms around the world finally. So
awesome. All right, Marianne. So what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Okay, so my website is Insight Healing Ministries.
Okay, Insight Healing Ministries. Okay.
Yes, it's very easy to traverse the site. Gives you more information about me, and then of course you can contact me through that.
Okay.
So,
and you mentioned that you're working with a lot of therapists.
Yes, I am working with a lot of therapists, and that's been rich and wonderful too, because these people really know, if they have the discernment for value, added value for the session, and they can see just about anybody. That the fact that they are saying a somatic experiencing brain spotter, speaks to what they feel like they're getting.
Right. Do you feel as though you have a particular place in your heart for therapists? I mean, are you able to help them?
Yeah, I
Out,
really
or
feel
what?
for them.
Okay.
Yeah, because I feel like that they're really putting their all out there, and it's a rough path, and
Yeah.
they don't get the same amount of freedom or ability to get the support they need. And since they're supporting everybody else, I feel like I'm part of a tiered,
Right.
thing here.
Right. Right. All right, Marianne. In terms of a go-to book recommendation,
Okay, so I
what do you
just
have?
picked this up recently, and it's When the Body Says No, and it's by Gabor Mate.
Uh-huh.
And he's just another one of those people that has noticed, he's a physician, has noticed that, disease or just, physical issues have a psychological component to them. In this part of the book that I'm reading right now, it's about MS patients and inescapable stressors, either from family or from events, and they have been stuck in the fight, flight, or freeze cycle, and so they develop MS. And so I'm just curious about that. And again, I'd love to be part of broader research to
Right.
see if we can help people lessen their symptoms by addressing them with the guided body-based focus. So we'll see.
Awesome. All right. So I'll have that linked up at the show notes page at the traumatherapistpodcast.com, both your website, Insight Healing Ministries, and of course, Gabor Mate and that book specifically. Marianne, thank you so much. This is very interesting. I feel you're kind of like ahead of the curve here.
It feels cutting edge.
Yeah. But again, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, if you'd ever like a sample experiencing, certainly please let me know.
I will, definitely. All right. Thanks so
Thank you
much.
so much. Okay, take care.